Hey everyone, it's Nick coming to you live again from Mountain View, California. And today I want to tell you about one of my favorite open source command line utilities for transcoding and working with audio and video media files called FFmpeg. So FFmpeg is kind of our Swiss Army tool that we'll be using for transcoding various assets. So the first thing that's a little tricky is kind of getting it installed correctly. So it does have a lot of external dependencies, and I will link below in the video description links on how to get everything installed and set up correctly. The second thing is once you have FFmpeg installed and you can run it from your command line, the first thing to learn about FFmpeg is using the -i flag. So with -i you can specify as an input file, and it will tell you all kinds of information about that file. Now, what I dislike about FFmpeg is that it always dumps config information about how it was built. So what we can do is use the hide banner flag, and that will prevent this banner from always being displayed. Now, what's great about using -i and -hide banner together is, given a video file, we can see information such as what's the duration of it, but then for the various streams that are within that file, what kind of codecs they use. So the first thing to note is that the file extension is kind of a misnomer on a file. It doesn't actually, changing the file extension doesn't change the underlying container that's used, nor the codecs that are used for the various streams. So a container is what's important, is kind of metadata, how the bits are packed, and the codecs encode how the audio or video streams are. So for instance, on this file we can see that stream 0 is the video codec and stream 1 is the audio codec, and what those codecs are. Right? So if we want to figure out what codecs our install of FFmpeg supports, we can use the -codecs flag, and I like to pipe this into less, and so it'll print a really neat little table that kind of shows us whether or not a codec is a video codec or an audio codec, and then whether or not we can decode from a given codec, as if that codec was an input, and if we can re-encode into the new codec. And that process of decoding from one codec and re-encoding into another, we call those two together transcoding. So this will tell us whether or not we have these dependencies installed correctly, and if you're missing something that you think you should have, double check. You may have to reinstall or rebuild FFmpeg or some of its dependencies. So the easiest thing to do is, let's say that we want to just transcode a file. So given, say, an MOV file, we want to convert it to WebM. That way we can play it in a bunch of web browsers. Simplest thing is -hide banner, -i, the input file name, .move, and then the final argument is just the output file name .webm. And FFmpeg's smart enough to, from the file extension, guess the container and guess same defaults for the audio and video codec. While that's transcoding, we can see from the stream mapping output what the input of stream 0, the input codec being H.264, and the output video codec for that stream being VP9, and for the input audio codec being AAC, and the output audio codec being Opus. So let's say now that we want to have finer grained control and explicitly control what the output video and audio codecs are. We can use the -c:\v flag followed by the name of the output codec for video, or the -c:\a flag to change the output codec for audio. So this gives us fine-grained control over, say, for instance, we're not happy with VP9 as the video codec and Opus as the audio codec. We have finer-grained control, and we can specify, nope, we actually want VP8, a little bit older codec. We want VP8 for video and Vorbis for audio, for instance. Now, let's say that you have a move file that's H.264 and AAC, but you want it to be in an MP4 container rather than a move container. What we can do to speed up the process is tell FFmpeg that we want to copy the input streams byte for byte and just change kind of the metadata of the container. So we can use the -c:\v and specify the value copy, and -c:\a and specify copy as well. And this is much faster because it's not actually doing transcoding. Instead, it's kind of stripping these two streams out of the input move container and dumping them into an MP4 output container. Finally, the last thing that I think is really useful is FFmpeg has a really powerful stream multiplexer. So the -map command followed by the input stream and then colon separated and followed by the output stream number lets us kind of rearrange exactly how we want our streams to be ordered in an output, or what we could do, for instance, is given a video file that has audio attached, we could say we want to strip out audio, which is the example that I'm doing here. So the map command is really powerful. If you have a file that came from someone else and maybe it's a little bloated, you can trim down the file size a little bit by stripping out some of the streams that you don't need, or you can add additional streams, maybe different languages or stuff like that. So the -map command is really powerful, and if you want to learn more about FFmpeg, it has a couple of command line flags. There's -h to learn kind of the basics, -h long, it prints out a lot of output, and -h full, which prints out a lot of information for working with FFmpeg. So it's a really great tool. I recommend it. Today we went over the basics of just seeing how to get started, and we should have kind of the basics that we need from transcoding from here on out. Thanks, and let me know what you thought of the video. See you next time.